How you doing, everyone? Just want to get into this video, talk a little bit about how to set up your team based on the amount of players they're going to be playing this week. Obviously, we've got a few guys that are backing up from Origin, so also just thinking about that and how they might be feeling come game day, whether it's Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. We also have the Monday game as well, but also talking about how we have Cleary that's named on an extended bench along with the rest of the Panthers guys. Obviously, we do have guys like Tedesco backing up for feeders in this squad. Obviously, we haven't made any trades yet in the people squad, Trebojevic as well. So there's a bunch of guys here that we need to be keeping an eye on in terms of if they're going to be playing or not. Thankfully, if we actually have a look at the teams that are playing in the first game, we do have the Manly guys. So Trebojevic will either play or he won't play, and you can make that decision straight away from there. So the easiest thing to do is obviously to move him out into your emergencies if he doesn't get to play at all. And obviously sitting there at the moment, we do have Teddy, who would then come in and play that. So at worst, he doesn't play and you can move him out. That's completely fine with Tedesco. In terms of, in terms of Trebojevic. So in terms of Tedesco or Fifita and Cleary, so Panthers game is next. So with the Cleary one, it's very, very easy just to wait until that game comes along. So I had a few people ask about looping him. And the best thing to do with that one is just literally wait until that second round comes. If he plays, then you just move him into your starting side, and if he doesn't, then he doesn't. You just hang back and let him sit there in the emergencies. Obviously we only have the potential of 18 players this week, with the potential of like 14 playing. So it'd be interesting to see if we have to make any trades in the people squad this week, and we probably will have to. But I'm not sure who we'd pick at this stage. So that's the easiest thing to do with those two guys. And then with Teddy and Fifita, so the Roosters play the Titans in the next one. So literally all those guys that are backing up are early in the round. So I wouldn't be too stressed about the types of guys that you're going to be picking up like that, or the guys you're looking to hold. So they're going to be decisions that are going to be made early on the round. My thoughts around it is just not to captain or vice captain any of them, because remember, if you do that, you can't trade them out or move them around your squad at all if you captain or vice captain them. So keep that in mind if you're thinking of doing that. In terms of, let's just have a look at this squad, for example, and what we may have to do in this round. As I said, we have four guys that are possibly backing up, one of them being not named, right? So we've got 18 possible, could be 14. What we might want to do is actually look to trade a couple of these guys out that aren't going to be playing in 17, for example, or we think that have done their dash in the squad, and one of those guys is probably Gamble, but at this stage of 341k, like who do you pick up for him? Is it are we going for someone like Lussick, who could be a solid option, and we'll talk about him here in this little video, but Joey Lussick at 228. The reason he's still priced at that, even after a couple of games, is he's just got no minutes. He's had 11 minutes in both those two games for 11 points in the first one, and then 4 points in the second one, which he had an error and 6 tackles. So for him, if you're going to be playing big minutes, if you look at their bench, they don't really have a backup hooker. So I'd imagine he plays anywhere from 60 to 80 minutes. And if that's the case, then you'll be expecting a fairly solid score, somewhere 40 plus, like we have seen with even on Simkin on the low end, but Mitch Kenny coming in and doing really well, that kind of type of player where they're getting sort of 40 plus when they get a chance in the squad. So he could be a solid option for that type of player. Do we want to trade him for someone like Albert Kelly? He's been scoring pretty well, for example. There's a couple other cheaper guys, but we won't really be sure as to who's going to play come that round 7 by. You have guys like Greg Marzu, who you could think about picking up. Aramia, if he ends up getting a chance, but there's not too many other really strong options in the really cheap range. If we go right up to around that, what do we got? 340 to play with, for example. There's not too many to select. You've got Charlie Staines if you want to go down that road again. Tyrone May's going to play again. Java Bowen's made a little bit of cash, averaging 32. Palaszczuk's in there, for example. Wanga Blake, for anyone that did well by picking him up. Gerard Beale will be there again, but he won't be there for too long. There's just not a lot of great options, and it's probably not worth making that type of trade, right? Especially if you don't have too much in the bank, like, we got 9k. So a few people are thinking about getting rid of Brayley, and that's, again, your prerogative. If you've got a lot of trades remaining, I think you can maybe do it. But he's also just someone that's had a quieter few weeks, and it's probably best just to hold on to those types of guys. Flegler's in there, but he's just coming off a decent score, so there's no real point trading the guys that are definitely playing this week. A lot of people are like, oh, trade Schuster out. He's not playing this week, but he should be back next week, right? I know he hasn't been named, which might be scary. It's like, oh, well, you'd hope that he'd be named on the extended bench and then not play. But I think he just should be back next week. There's been no indication as to him not being back in 15. The chat was going to be, is to be 14 or 15, and he's someone that we're going to really need in round 17 because we only have 4 players that are going to be playing in round 17 at this stage, and that's Walsh, Schuster, Tohu Harris, and also one other player, Avrilo, right? So there are only 4 at the moment that are playing in round 17. So trading someone out who's going to be playing that, I think, is a massive mistake going forward in you selecting your squads. In terms of the other guys in this squad, a few people might be like, "Oh, I'll trade out Olin," but he's too cheap now. He's not going to lose too much more cash, and there's every chance he goes back to that 40+ scoring. He's just had again, like Brayley, just 3 really really lean weeks. Compared to Brayley's 40 odds, Olim's been 2, 22, and 22. So can he get out of the 20s range? And make that decision from there. But someone like Dane Laurie is an interesting one. I think he's scoring well enough that you can hold him in your squad. It's a very interesting team at the moment as to what we can kind of do there. And anyone else in this team other than like Spencer and Gamble, I wouldn't really be trading. So it makes it really tough to kind of work through your squad at the moment. And it could be just like a pray and hope that all these guys back up. And I think you just wait until tonight's game in the Origin arena and see how these guys see how these guys are feeling after the game. If they end up with an injury during the game, if they end up with a suspension following the game, and how they end up, how they're feeling basically out of this one, and just obviously keeping a keen eye on Enroll Physio and any of the late mail as to whether these guys are not going to play or they are. And I think if the majority of them are, if we can get 16 on the park, it might be worth not trading at all this week. So just a couple of things to think about with your squad guys in terms of setting up for the loop. So the majority of people will only have sort of 18 players, and just have someone that plays earlier on in the week sitting in that emergency spot. If you weren't sure about playing them and you're like, oh, they could go good or they could not, just sit them in number 5, and then however it works, you can get 1, 2, 3 interchange players. If they don't play, you just get the next 3 emergencies. So just do that if you're not exactly sure on a player that you're like, oh, well, I hope Trebojevic is, Teddy or someone's got that's going to play. But if they don't, I'm happy to take the score of the other player. Then just put that other player in 5, and wait for Teddy or for Fifita's score, or if they're going to play or not, an hour before kickoff. But yeah, that's probably the most important thing, is just to check that late mail an hour before kickoff and make your decision from there, guys. So that's just so just a quick video on how to do that, and I hope that helps you guys. And we'll catch you in the next one, team. Have a good one.